Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Ramblings of an Old Fart podcast. Hello, my name is Craig Warren. I'm 71 years old. Been married almost 53 years. Father of 9 and grandpa to a bunch. I'm sort of retired. I retired at 65 to provide full-time care for my wife who's had some pretty serious health issues. But lately I realized that I needed something to do to keep my mind active, so why not a podcast? I have a lot of experience. I've definitely done a lot of things in my 50-plus years in the workforce. I've definitely got a lot of opinions, so what more would I need? I should mention that I have never been a member of a political party, and I do not intend to do so. My podcasts do not come from a political place, just from a factual and common sense place. Today, I want to talk about something that's been happening here in Utah, my home state. But this is something that has very similar things happening all over the country. I want to call this one dark money, big corporations, and unaccountable government. And they're doing it to us again. Recently, they've came in with a proposed huge data center out in the west part of Box Elder County here in Utah. It's massive. The proposed one was put in a big power generation system using natural gas to produce up to 9 gigawatts of power, which is tremendous. That's about double what our whole state uses in a year, kind of a thing. And so there's been a lot of uproar about it. It all happened really fast, kind of pushing it through, and all of our elected officials kept saying, "Oh God, this was just dropped on us right now. We had no time to, prepare for it, be ready for it." And that's just not exactly true. And I want to go through some of this because this is not a good thing. We're trying to bypass, in this situation, they actually bypassed our legislature in a lot of ways, and they're definitely trying to bypass people. At this point, the public's never even been allowed for any public debate about it. They had meetings, but then they shut it down, didn't let anybody ask any questions or debate anything. It was already kind of a foregone conclusion, it appears. So what I want to talk about here is we have this Kevin O Leary. He's behind this company, O Leary Data or something, and they're pushing for this big data center. We have some issues here, he claims recently, because he doesn't like all of the uproar and all the people trying to fight back against this thing. So he came out on public national TV and claimed that the people of Utah were being funded and financed and by China. And he claimed that he had the IRS documents to prove it. Well, he finally had to kind of back that, his CEO of that O Leary Digital had to back it off a little bit. But here's how this worked. And I did a podcast here a few weeks ago on dark money. And this ties back into that. Because what he claimed, there was a couple of organizations here in Utah that have been fighting this, and they were getting money from some of these nonprofit organizations that have sponsored several things, like these ballot initiatives, these redistricting things been going on all over the country. They're the ones providing most of the funding for that. So this is how it kind of worked. The information that he had, I am pretty sure, traces back to a group called the Arabella Fund, right? And they go, there's like this Sunshine something or other is the parent company. But they're basically a 501c3 organization, nonprofit. And they have to file, when they take that money in, wherever it comes from, they have to file that Form 990 with the IRS. Okay, that's what he was talking about. However, when they funnel the money down to like a 501c4 or some of these groups like here in Utah, this Alliance for a Better Utah, or I think there's one of this Slow the Flow. It's one of these organizations designed to help save the Great Salt Lake. But anyway, when the money gets to them, there's no names attached to it. So even if there was Chinese money came into the original organization, nobody down below it knows that because it's not attached to that organization in any way. So he was a little disingenuous on that, and I think a lot of that was just designed to shift focus away from all of the uproar caused by this thing. The irony is while Mr. Leary was demanding financial audits of the local organizers, which he did, his own project relies on this MIDA, which is a state agency, which is kind of a, I'm not even sure, kind of a military quasi-state organization, which bypasses everybody, which I really, really do not like. But anyway, while that was all going on, they fast-tracked the zoning and private agreements with landowners behind closed doors with no public input. They even bypassed our state legislators for the most part. This is one of those cases what I call the you accuse the accuser. You don't want to answer to their allegations and their questions. You just accuse them of something else to shift focus. And so by shifting the narrative to this international espionage thing, they were able to shift this away from the main focus. It was a PR stunt, basically. It allows them to paint local ranchers and farmers and seniors who are generally terrified about losing their water, which of course this data center, they're tying up huge amount of water. And then of course they'll be paying higher utility bills probably because they're going to be consuming, if it goes into effect the way they had originally had it drawn up, it would consume huge amounts of natural gas. So Governor Cox recently, the governor of the state here, admitted the public rollout of the Stratus project was not good. Yeah, you think? They tried to do it all in secret and then they tried to lie about it. That's never good, really. But this Kevin O'Leary and his company, they're basically putting pressure on our state leaders, painting them into a corner. If they don't back his gas plant, they're letting China win the AI race. And that's been their mantra on the news as well. But there's some serious issues here as well. We have some implications or some signs that there's some funny business going on. And I want to go through some of those. In May of 2026, investigative reports from the Utah Political Watch revealed that the financial connection between Stuart Adams, which he's the president of the Senate, and he's also the chair on this MIDA board, this state quasi-military thing, whatever it is. But 5 individual companies with deep, direct financial ties to MIDA collectively wrote $135,000 in checks to Stuart Adams' leadership PAC on a single day. These 5 checks represent the largest single-day donations in the history of his PAC. Adams immediately transferred the largest sum ever recorded from the PAC directly into his personal campaign account to fund a tight primary re-election race. So see, this Stuart Adams, he's the chair of this MIDA organization. And that's where they passed these secret resolutions that drew up this 40,000-acre Stratus project boundaries. And they signed a master development agreement behind closed doors. No public input. That happened on April 24th. On May 1st, exactly 1 week later, the 5 MIDA-aligned entities dropped a combined $135,000 into Adams' leadership PAC. On May 4th, 3 days after the checks clear, the Box Elder County Commissions hold a public meeting at the fairgrounds here to pass the interlocal agreement, telling the crowd it was just a small first step, which was not true. This has already been decided. This interlocal agreement, basically, they were basically forced into signing that because if they didn't, this MIDA group would bypass them completely and they'd be cut out of some of the taxing issues for revenue. That's basically what it looks like to me. Also, we have Mike Schultz, the Speaker of the House. There's some allegations that he bought, and it's absolute fact, the public records show that he bought some property close to where this MIDA project is going to be, early in January of this year. He claims that he didn't know anything about this project until April. However, Kevin O'Leary, on a national news program on Fox and Friends, claims that he met with Stuart Adams, Governor Cox, and Mike Schultz in late 2025, where he explained the planned project to him. Yeah, so even the governor has some explaining to do here. And what I call this is they all claim that there's nothing going on, but it's what I call the implication of impropriety. So let's kind of take a look here how this all shakes out. On January 8th of 2026, Governor Cox meets privately with Kevin O'Leary to map out this 40,000-acre project. See, they already talked in late 2025, but now they're getting serious about it. But the public, we don't know anything about it yet. The public and local ranchers are kept entirely in the dark. The ranchers don't even know that they're already talking about doing things with their property without their knowledge, sounds like. Then, in January, between January and March, the House legislature passes this HB 60. Okay? It sounds like no big deal, right? It's just a bill. However, they've tried to frame it on the news that it was strictly regulatory streamlining for the state. But what it does, it limits the public's ability to protest water rights. It's kind of suspect because this was all done just a few weeks before this became public knowledge, and they were going to tie up a huge amount of water. And the public had no knowledge and were not allowed to participate in that. Then on April 24th, of course, this MIDA group organization gets together and they, in a secret meeting, and they sign all the paperwork getting this project up and running. And then, of course, after they signed everything, then this it becomes official and they announce it publicly. Then, of course, on May 1st, we find out that the $135 has gone into, President Adams' account, all of that kind of stuff. When he was asked about it, he just refused to answer any questions about it. And then on May 4th, the deal is locked. Commissioners move to a separate room because they refused to answer any questions or take any comments. And so they slipped out into a separate room where they could close the door and went ahead and made their decision, signed the paperwork. As I said, I think they were kind of boxed into a corner because if they didn't, this MAID outfit was going to bypass them anyway, I think. The bottom line is, though, the governor didn't just have advanced knowledge. He was the primary salesman here. He tried to bully the public into accepting this massive environmental hazard by wrapping it in a national security flag, only to back down a little bit when the local residents and conservative ranchers and environmental groups organized a ballot referendum to strip the county's approval. And that's still going on right there. We'll see how all that works out. But you can see why these progressive watchdog groups instantly flagged this May 1st date for the ethics investigations. It shows that the financial gratitude for moving the Stratus project forward was delivered right into the Senate President's PAC before the local citizens ever even had a chance to know what was going on. So this date gives us a pinpoint, an anchor for our timeline, if you will. It completely shatters the idea that the state and local approvals were moving independently of big money influence. When reporters asked Adams about that blatant conflict of interest for taking massive campaign cash, why, he just refused to take any questions or answer anybody. So let's kind of look at how this all shakes out just a little bit. This MIDA doesn't just show up in Box Elder County by accident. The rules were systematically cleared for them by key lawmakers who handle the state's purse strings, right? Senator Jerry Stevenson, he's the vice chair of this MIDA organization. He's a powerful state senator who sits next to Stuart Adams on the MIDA board. In legislative hearings, Stevenson defined MIDA's staggering reach by stating plainly. You want to listen to this because I think this is happening in other places too. He said, anything that a city can do, MIDA can do. Except, as you know, nobody can vote a MIDA board member out of office. And then we have Senator Scott Sandell. He's a Box Elder County representative who I know well. But he, it's kind of weird because the exact same committee that shapes water policy, he's involved with, the Agricultural and Environmental Committee. And he's been a primary force behind streamlining regulations to favor agricultural industrial water conversions, shifting water rights away from ranchers and farmers and towards big business. He advanced clean through his April 2026. Oh, of course, he went through his primary election, just sailed through without any problem. But a lot of that came from money from these big corporations and industrial places. I'm not sure how that's going to work out because we are in a desert state. I guess any of you who have been listening to the news, I'm pretty sure it's national news exactly how bad this drought is here. So the county commissioners told us on May 4th that their vote was just a small first step. But if we go through this, you'll see that that just was not true at all. Because 10 days before the county meeting ever happened on April 24th, as you can see in our timeline, Stuart Adams and Jerry Stevenson held a formal MIDA board meeting. And this is what they passed, and this is how it broke out. On April 24th at 9 a.m., MIDA officially adopts the Stratus Project Area Plan, legally established in the 40,000 acre zone before local residents even had a chance to speak at the fairgrounds. See, they had this meeting supposedly for public comments, but this was already a done deal before that meeting ever happened. Then at 9:15, MIDA approves the executives approves and executes the formal development agreement with Kevin O Leary, the master developer, right? At 9:30, MIDA bypasses local tax structures by levying its own municipal energy sales and use tax. And by the way, in the county, well, I think normal was about 6.5%, and I think through the MIDA thing, they agreed on 0.5%. Bargain deal, right? Oh, and anyway, on 9:45, MIDA approves the interlocal corporation cooperation agreement with Box Elder County, contingent on the commissioners signing it on May 4th. So that's why I'm saying, when I said earlier, that I think the county was trapped into this because if they didn't sign it, they would probably be locked out of some of the tax revenues. So I think they pretty much figured they had to vote for it. Okay, so this timeline gives us the ultimate proof of what I call a shadow government. We have this dark money, comes from who knows where. It goes into one organization, then they will launder it, and that's what I call it. It's reprehensible, but technically legal. But it's basically laundered money. Once it goes from there down, nobody knows where it came from. I mean, I'm sure if anybody taking that, most of these groups, if they knew where some of this money came from, they may not want to take it. But anyway, our county commissioners stood at the fairgrounds on May 4th and told us they had no choice because the land was unzoned and it was just a small step. But the truth is, the deal was already done on April 24th. An unelected board in Salt Lake City, chaired by Senate President Adams, who just took $135,000, from a MIDA-aligned interest, had already signed the development agreements, passed the energy taxes, and drew the boundaries. The county vote wasn't a meeting, it was an execution of contract that was already signed. This is how what I would call what is technically called a pincer move. You see, the developers pay the lobbyists write the rule changes, the state authority, the MIDA, passes the resolutions in April, and then the local commissioners play dumb in May, like they didn't know what was going on. I get frustrated by all of this stuff because they try and play the people like idiots and fools. They want to do all this in secret, and it appears like, I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but it appears like that they've been taking some money on the side there a little bit. Like I said, even our governor has some things that I haven't got any direct proof of anything, but his family owns a business that could be directly affected by this. So, it's like this this implication of impropriety. And as a public official, those are things that you should always be conscious of and make sure there is none of that. Even the implication can be very damaging to our state and to them personally. I hope this all works out for the best for us, but I'm not too sure about that. Anyway, that's it for today. I just wanted to keep you updated. And if you haven't want to look into this dark money a little bit more, go back and find my podcast. It was Dark Money and Politics. And that'll go through a lot more how that works. It should not be allowed. We should make sure we should eliminate that completely. I don't think we will because, dark money is where a lot of these attack ads come from during the election cycle. Yeah, so some of those, if that dark money is out there funding ads slamming their competition, they kind of like that. So I don't know. I'm not sure it's ever going to happen, but it's a horrible thing. Well, that's it for today. That's probably more than enough. So I appreciate you being with me today. Thank you for joining me. This is Craig Warren, Ramblings of an Old Fart podcast. I hope you join me next time. But until then, may God bless and keep you.